Like I kind of did the stages of grieving. Once the writer's strike went on longer than like June, I started being like, okay, this is an end of the year thing. The next day I start packing and I'm loading a U-Haul, and like, and then a week and a half later I'm driving 800 miles. I know two things. I know that my life has to change, and I know that I need to be in the driver's seat more often than not.
Hey gang, Shane Patrick White here, and welcome to Beyond the Process with my co-host Lance Laspina.
How are you, Shane? Always a pleasure to be here with you.
Our guest today, and we're very excited to have him, is Kevin Mellon. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself, Kevin?
Sure. I'm a director, storyboard artist, author, and illustrator of comic books. I've been working in animation for the last 10 plus years. Started out working on Archer for FXX, and then over the years have transitioned into a couple other things. Most recently, directing on Hitmonkey for Marvel Hulu, also through Floyd County. And then I also have done a bunch of live action storyboarding, mostly for CW shows like The Vampire Diaries, Black Lightning, Legacies, Dynasty, and then a couple other things. And also I make comic books. That's where I started out, was making comics. I'm a graduate of the Kubert School. And then now with everything going on in the world with the strikes and whatnot, I'm finding myself in a place where I'm back to making comics. So, yeah.
That's crazy. It's just, I mean, we're seeing a lot of this happen, not just in animation and film, but the game industry in the last couple of months have lost about 6,000 employees, and the jobs are down
Yep.
like by 1,000.
I did my I mean, we can talk about this if you want to, but I did my, stages of grief earlier in the summer about it all. So now it's just more kind of like, okay, like, get to work.
So this is going back, like you knew about this. This was going to happen earlier
So
in the summer.
it's two-sided. One, I knew I was going to move from Hitmonkey season 2 to another show. As the strikes drug on, that other show development just became unlikely and is now, not happening, that sort of thing. So it became, and because of the way budgets work and stuff like that, they're again, stuff above my pay grade, but basically they had budgeted for me to move on to this other show, and there was no money for that show, and there was no more money apparently, whatever, as far as me staying on, to finish out season 2, which is totally fine. It happens. Like, I was slated to do another thing, and they extended me for as much as they could, thankfully. But yeah, at the end of the day, it just came down to, cash.
So, do you attribute everything that happened to the strikes, first the writers and then the actors strike, or are there other influences
Animation,
that?
as you guys know, TV and animation's a fickle business anyways. So this stuff like this, like the show that like I was supposed to move to, could have gone away anyways. Who knows? Like that sort of thing. But yeah, I attribute it to honestly, I attribute it to pandemic and studios kind of like recoiling based on how that treated everybody and how that treated things fiscally and financially. And as an animation studio, we stayed working, but it definitely and the studio I was with has changed a lot over the years, and it's definitely become in ways that I don't have an issue with, but it's become more processed, less familial and more business like, what I mean, more corporate, in for lack of a better term. And again, I don't use that term negatively. A lot of people do, but I don't. And it came down to needing to make decisions fiscally, which I understand. So you have everybody jumping on making animation during the pandemic. And then as soon as live action comes back, a lot of that stuff gets scrapped or whatever. But we've seen a glut of animation coming out. But I don't know.
Right.
The thing that I have no idea about, and maybe you guys have more knowledge about this than I do, I have no idea how well that stuff did for the streamers. But you have a lot of like stuff that got pitched or got picked up that just either didn't get made or is still being made because animation takes so much longer. You know what I mean? Like, nobody knew how long the pandemic was going to last, and everybody was like, everybody pivoted, tried pivoting to animation, that sort of thing. And now you have this thing of the writer's strike is tough because that halts anything that was in development, and development takes a really long time, like like I've been on so many projects where, you know, like over the course of my 10, 11 years in animation, like, yeah, I have a steady resume of working on Archer because Archer was somehow really rock steady and paid the bills for the company and for me. But also that doesn't show you the 20 plus projects that I helped develop or I was a part of that never went anywhere during that time.
Mhm.
And then when
Mhm.
those go away, we always just go back. Okay, you're going back to Archer. You know, a lot of those projects, like a lot of stuff got quickly, from my limited vantage point. Also, just take this as like my limited vantage point. My limited vantage point, a lot of stuff got green light or at least put into development very quickly during that time. And then as soon as live action
Mhm.
came back, it all just kind of whatever, which caused a bunch of layoffs, I feel like 2 years ago. And so everybody was kind of scrambling, but there was still projects being developed. And then because development takes so long, development isn't so much like, you know, oh yes, we want to make this show, let's start making it. It's like, okay, we need to get a script we like, we need to get an actor, we need to get voices, we need to get names. And I don't know how it is with games and stuff, but directors in animation are less important than directors in television and even movies. You know what I mean? Like they're important, like, you
Yeah,
know, as one of them, you know, we're important, but it's less about the directors very rarely get the show made in animation. It's usually voice cast, writer, you know, that sort of thing. Like if you'll notice when a lot of times when they
sure.
announce animation projects, they announce the studio and the voice cast, less so
Mhm.
who's directing. And
Mhm.
I wish they, I mean, much to my ego, I wish they would announce directors and storyboard directors and artists and stuff like that. Cause it's like,
Yeah.
we're, you know, I mean,
Yeah,
I'll probably get
integral.
shit.
Yeah.
I'll get shit for this,
Yeah.
but we're co-directing the show, you know?
Absolutely.
So it's,
Absolutely. So I'm curious how that was left with you. Like, how did the studio approach you and let you know what was happening? And did they give you any open ends to come back eventually once this is all?
I have open ends to come back. It's very much kind of like, you know, yeah, I got laid off, but also I take it as, you know, there are, you know, I take little solace in this, but I do have to take some solace in this. There are people who were let go who were way above me and,
Mm.
you know, stuff like that,
Mhm.
you know, and it's just out of necessity and a lack of development and work, you
Mhm.
know, because it's like, even now that the writers can develop, you know, and you know, producers can go pitch stuff, actors can't be
Right.
attached.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. There's that
and
missing.
in an animated in an animated show, an actor getting attached is just as, if not more important than to me, in my view, than an actor getting attached in a live action show,
Sure.
you know?
Sure.
So,
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's true.
yeah.
I wanted to ask you. This is a little more personal, I suppose.
Sure.
There's a certain emotional cost that comes with a job change
Mhm.
and just a big big career change that is foisted upon you.
Sure.
And there's also an emotional cost when you're leading teams
Mhm.
and you have to manage trying to get the show done,
Yeah.
knowing that this is it
Yeah.
and that their morale is at stake and that you also have to make life plans because things are happening.
Mhm.
So how what was that like for you? Like how did you manage all that and say, "Hey, I got to go back to Kansas City."
Yeah, it's a good question, and I'll try not to be really long about it, but it's a, you know, it's kind of it was a process. Like I said at the front, like I kind of did the stages of grieving. Once the writer's strike went on longer than like June, I started being like, okay, this is an end of the year thing.
Mhm.
Like, and that's when I started seeing the math in my head of like, okay, so I've still got an end date on Hitmonkey 2. The project that I'm
Uh,
supposed to go on can't be in development because there's a writer who can't write, you know, who can't work on it. Actors
and
that
everyone knew this on your team, right?
we
Like
all, yeah,
everyone
we all
knew this
saw,
was
you know,
coming.
we all hoped, like we're, you know, up through Labor Day, there was always this hope because if things had come back online around Labor Day-ish, there was this, probably foolish, but there was this hope that pre-production could start on other things before end of the year, so it wouldn't be a lot of downtime for people, you know, because not just me, because we have character designers, background artists, all the other stuff who are going down as well, and who need, you know, have to look for other work. And so we're having to prep them to look for other work like months in advance, because, you know what I mean, because we know that
Yeah.
there's nothing to move them on to. What I made sure to do was to make sure that our producers and or HR and stuff like that, like, even though there was company policy saying that there was a certain amount of time, and I made sure that we were communicating stuff much sooner than what the policy was written, you know, and I just said over and
Right,
over,
right.
these are kids. They're like, not half my age, but not far off. You know what I mean?
Right.
This a lot of their first job. We need to give them the best expectation. We need to give them the best ending possible. You
Mhm,
know what I mean?
mhm.
If we don't have something to roll them onto, they need to have the. It's important to me that their first experience in this industry end on a positive note, and that they carry that to the thing that they go into next. And that was super important to me. I conveyed that over and
That's
over to my
smart.
producers, and they understood that, and they worked with me, and they did a phenomenal job of working with me within their schedule and their time frame, because sometimes they can't move until they have certain information. You know what I mean? So, but it was just a
True.
constant
Yep.
conversation, and they were good with me. Like they were good with me about being like, hey, this is what's happening. Here's why, here's this, blah blah blah. And really, like I said, my kind of like stages of grief about it was a mixed bag, because like I'm also got this, like I'm having conversations. I'm back in Kansas City now, so it's like I'm having conversations with my girlfriend, like, okay,
Mhm.
you want me to move in with you. I was looking at slow rolling it, and like basically doing a bunch of trips back and forth to Georgia, to kind of like
Sure.
not
Well,
have to do what I ended up doing, which is what I ended up doing is literally like last day of work, the next day I start packing, and I'm loading a U-Haul, and like, and then a week and a half later I'm driving 800 miles.
it's interesting because you were in an environment that seemed to have a little bit of a pressure cooker environment. You had
Mhm.
to deliver on time, at a quality that was, had to be consistent with everything that came before or better.
Yeah.
But now that it's just like suddenly you're faced with the reality of I don't have this in my life right now.
Yep.
So, how do you go about? Um, do you recreate that, or do you sort of re-examine your life and say, "Hey, this is my new reality, and I have to make a huge adjustment." Like, and I know because you said you're working on that graphic novel, and you had a sequel to Suicide Sisters. Is
Mhm.
that right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
In the works?
Um, Good questions all. And honestly, that kind of gets into like the area that like I'm still in the middle of it, so I'm still figuring that out. Like I don't know what it looks like, because like it's like, I filed for unemployment for the first time in my life. So I'm like, this is weird. How do I do that? That sort of thing. But also while looking for work while thousands of other people with my exact same skill set and experience level are also looking for work. You know what I mean? That's a,
Mhm.
that's a weird spot to be in. But the thing that I'm trying to do is like there's a coffee shop right around the corner that I love. They're super nice. And such a chill environment. So what I've been trying to do, if not every day, but most days, is I'm there for 2 to 3 hours, and that's just writing time.
Kevin, do you think sometimes it's easier to have like someone else's job you're working on that they're telling you what to do rather than have
Sure.
enough free time that you should be working on your own projects, but it's hard to dedicate yourself to set aside the time to actually do it?
Yeah, I think there's two things to that. Is one, we're kind of conditioned via school from a young
Mhm,
age to be that
mhm,
way, to kind of always be on somebody else's dime and somebody else's
mhm,
time with regards to, hey, this needs to be done at this certain amount of time, whether you give a shit or
mhm,
not.
mhm,
So there's that, and then and we're not really as conditioned as American kids, anyways. Uh, and maybe it's changed. I'm not a child right now, obviously, but maybe it's changed, but I still feel, if watching her kids, I still feel it's the same way. There's very much you go do your work, and it doesn't matter what you do after that. But while you're here, you have to do this thing that I ask you to
mhm,
do, regardless of whether or not you want to do it. And there's good and bad to that. I think the thing that makes the most successful people at what we do when they're freelance is the people who are able to treat it like a business.
mhm,
Not necessarily even like a
mhm,
job, but just treat it like a business. And I think that's something that I fail at a lot, and I watch a lot of our
mhm,
colleagues, struggle with, is they tie their ego into it, they tie their emotions into it so heavily that they don't treat it like okay, this was a good business day, this was a bad business day, but how are we looking on the long haul? Are we steadily going up? Are we flatlining? You know what I mean?
mhm.
Like it's kind of like I was a big Cerebus fan back in the day, and Dave Sim, he did
Oh,
his
yeah.
comics guide to self publishing, and he in that that was basically my before Kubert School. I learned a lot from Kubert School, but like I learned so much even before I got there, just through that and through like Comics Interview and stuff like that. But his notes from the publisher back in the front of Starburst that became the guide to self-publishing were hugely I used to keep copies of that just to hand to people. Because it's just the first few chapters on buy a bunch of paper, try it out on all your different pencils, buy a bunch of pens, try them out. But his part that really stuck with me and really ingrained in me, and we're talking like this is like 12, 13-year-old me reading this stuff. So I had this stuff is like, you set a timer for an hour and you see how long it takes you to draw a panel. And then once that hour is up, you see how far you got. If you didn't get the panel done, you can't do a page a day. Like, if you set a timer of like, I'm going to spend 8 hours on a page, and you get through the 8 hours and you're only 3/4 done, then you're not a page a day guy. Your book can't come out every month. Like, you're not a monthly, like that sort of like just basic hard math of like, it's hard emotional math too, because our egos are so tied on
reality.
Yeah.
It sets in and you're just like, oh dear Lord, I don't know. Either I have to get faster, simplify my style, or I have to choose something
all
else.
of it. It's literally all of the above. It's literally all of the above. And so like, I have spent the last few years like telling people like, well, going back into comics should be hypothetically easier because I'm so much faster now. But that's not necessarily going to be the case. You know what I mean?
That's, you know, what's interesting. I find that when I was doing comics, you know, the demand of comics was a really great training ground for storyboarding. So when I would work with an agency, they were like, God, you're so fast. I'm like, I don't know about that, but I'm like, do you like what you see? And they're like, yeah. But it's what's interesting is that certain disciplines train you for other disciplines and can make you better. So given the very specificity of Archer and Hid Monkey, the way that the animation was done, the way the storyboarding was done, because it seemed like it was, like you said, like a 3-camera setup, or very I don't know, linear, not as dynamic as say anime or other animation. Do you feel like a lot of that's going to be able to translate into the work that you want to do? Because I mean, let's face it, comics isn't going to really pay that well.
No, yeah. So the thing that well, first, the thing that I've been thinking about a lot lately, is what am I going to do that makes people give a shit, you know? Making the comic is one thing, but you have to choose you have to kind of figure out what added value you bring besides that. So like take someone like you, Shane, doing this podcast. You make comics and you've made comics for forever and you make beautiful, brilliant comics. But
like you,
you know, but no, I'm just kidding. No, like there is a but it's not about your comics. It's about like the quote unquote random audience person on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, whatever. They are going to care more about this, which will bring them to that, rather than finding that and then seeing this. You know what I mean? So like
I don't.
This is the added value. Like, you're talking process, you're going to bring additional information, you know what I mean? So it's like,
I see what
you know, so like there's an added value to like, why should this person care about this comic? And it happens with movies and stuff too. It happens in, you know, it's like that, you know, it's also plays into a little bit of the us versus them stuff that we see so much, you know, but it's like you want to be a part of this because it's going to put you on the right side of making comics, or politics, or history, or whatever, you know. It's like, you know, it's like choose, you know, this song is about you, you know, but it's like, here's why it's about you, and then here's like, you know, like people, you see so many people, I don't remember who it was, but one of the people I follow on Blue Sky or whatever was actually it's a fellow storyboard artist. I won't call him out because I don't want to make him feel bad, because it's totally a valid thing. But he was like, can't we just post art anymore? Do we have to post a process picture, you know, a time lapse of everything? Can't we just post art anymore? And I'm like, I wanted to reply, like, you know, all these conversations I've been having and all the stuff I'm seeing is like, we're kind of past the age where that was enough, you know? And while I would love it to be enough, you do want to, people want a story, people want to feel like they're a part of something. So people want to feel like they're on the ground level of something too. It's like they want to feel like they're in on something cool. They're discovering something cool, something that resonates with them, and this is a way for people to do that. And that's kind of where I'm at right now, is like, what is my thing? What is my other thing other than just making these books? Like, yeah, I can sit there and like, I could make a soundtrack for my books. That doesn't really excite me because I don't really think that way about my stuff, but that would be a thing that I could think about. But also, like, I could videotape my process and I can blog my process. Is that what I want to do? Like, so like when we talk about
Right,
like where I'm at and like what's the day to day and like whatever, it's like I'm in this weird place of like, okay, if I'm going to treat myself like a business, I need to have a business plan. I need to have a structure. I need to have these kinds of like, okay, within a month, I need to be doing this, within 2 months, within 6 months, within a year, and I went into 2023, and Jessica was a part of these conversations. I went into 2023 going, I don't know how, but I know two things. I know that my life has to change, and I know that I need to be in the driver's seat more often than not. And I had no idea what that meant. Little did I know.
Could you sort of describe like the transition between going from storyboard artist to directing an animated show, and then what exactly did you do directing Hitmonkey, in
Sure.
terms of, do you direct the voice acting? Do you direct the action? Like,
So
what's that about?
So Floyd's kind of an interesting animal. I don't know how, I honestly don't have a really good clue as to how most of the studios work, but so like, on just to kind of try and simplify it a little bit, there was never, up until the last couple seasons, there was never a quote unquote director, just director listed on Archer, because the art director was my boss at that time. He was the art director for the first like 6 seasons, Neil Holman. He was also the director, like, you know what I mean? But it was listed as art director. And there was a weird credit. There was a weird kind of like trying to figure stuff out. And they really kind of like nailed it down a little bit cleaner over the last couple of years, I feel like. I know I was one of several people fighting for various credits. Getting a storyboard director credit was important to me, having, getting all that. But anyways, so the art director on Archer for the longest time was just considered also the director, and the art director has an associate director, and then art direction, those directors work with boards. And for the first like 6 or 7 seasons, there was no real, there was just storyboard artists. There wasn't any leads, no seniors, no directors, whatever. And I started pushing for, as I realized, like, there's no real, I realized that within that department, it's either you go into art direction or you leave the company. You know what I mean? Like, there's not really a path within that department or whatever. So the company itself kind of realized that, I think, through, again, not just me. I'm sure there was probably a dozen other people clamoring for different things, because all the departments now have a director, have a lead, and then have seniors, and then people, and then regular whatever, and then and so there's a path forward within the department. So now, like, this past season on Hitmonkey, I ran 2 teams of board artists, and so each team had a lead, and then each team had the artists underneath them. So they all would report to the lead, and then the leads reported to me, and I worked with everyone, but my filters for the main thing were the leads. And then I spent, to get to your question as far as like how I went from being a board artist, I actually was art director on season 1. And art director on season 1, I worked with boards a lot, but this show is massive. Like, it's a massive show. Like, our first episode, just to give you an idea, the pilot episode of Hitmonkey, was the animatic cut was initially like 38 minutes long. Which rare.
Whoa.
Yeah. Because we boarded everything that was in the show, you know what I mean? And a lot of, and like, so that, and I was the art, and as art director and all that, it's like, I'm working with like, producers, background artists, stuff like that. Cause we got to start, cause also I work with, my producers, and, the listed director on this, of the season, was Neil Holman. And it's like working with him, and as he should be listed. Sorry, it's just, I say listed just because I'm listed as director on season 2.
Right.
And so it's all of us working with, as art director, I didn't, and what I fought for to do on season 2 is more of this, but as director, he worked with edit more, was in edit,
Mhm.
adding boards, working with the board's team, in with me as much as possible. But I'm art director with my associate art director, and we are running backgrounds, we're checking animation, which I'm doing designs, designing stuff, getting, give it running, either if I'm not designing stuff if I'm not checking designs, I'm redesigning like characters, whatever,
And
like noting turns, noting, noting all that stuff like that. Like, so basically anything that's not boards and editing, art direction is kind of over the rest of it. You know what I mean?
okay. Right.
At least how we handled it on season 1. So going into season 2, they had a conversation. They were like, "Hey, do you want to come back as art director?" And I was like, I know I could learn more, but that's not where my passion is. My passion is telling the story. So I would rather, as much as I do, it's tedious, but I do actually like noting turns. I like noting backgrounds. I like fixing that stuff. I like being presented with something
Nice.
that's broken and then solving it,
Mhm.
But my real
Yeah.
passion is being presented with something that's broken and solving it. And I, rightly or wrongly, and much to the chagrin of most writers I've worked with, I view the script as something that is inherently broken and it's my job to fix it.
Mhm.
So,
Oh, wow.
and
You just made a lot of fans
I
out
know,
there.
yeah. I'm sure people will hate me for this, but you can't argue with it though. When you talk to when you talk to writers who have actually worked in television and production and all that stuff,
Mhm.
they want to get in the edit because that's where you really tell the
Sure.
story.
Right.
That's where,
Right.
and so I think any writer, like, yeah, you're providing, it's like some people quibble at the term blueprint, but I think it's perfect.
Mhm.
It is a blueprint. It's a guideline because we get in there and it's like, yeah, they wrote this, but it contradicts this thing 2 pages
Mhm.
before, and I need to set up this thing 2 pages afterwards. So I've got to make it this. And I'm not changing their dialogue. I'm not changing how the story arc goes, but I'm changing setups.
Mhm.
I'm redoing beats. I'm adding, like visual beats, emotional beats, stuff like that. And we do that in the edit too. Like, and we get into this stuff, and not every show works this way. And, like Archer is very much not this way. Archer is like the script is the thing, like
Mhm.
that's and for good reason. The show is paced to a certain degree. The show is, um the voices and tone of that show and those characters is so locked in that like you don't really want to steer too far from it. You really want to lean into that,
Mhm. Mhm.
Right.
and Hitmonkey is trying to be so many you know so many different things, that like Archer has its own niche, has its own, they overlap in that they're action comedy stuff. Like they're more comedy
Right.
action and we're action comedy, I would say, like we're action drama comedy as far as Hitmonkey goes,
Okay.
and a
Interesting.
more Eastern influence and stuff like that, bigger fight scenes, and we have a different type of animation going on. So
Mhm.
it's just more involved, stuff like that. And so anyways, getting into season 2, conversations with my producers, I was like, I want to be in the edit. I want to be, in the story deciding room, in those things and stuff like that. And while I did not get a chance to, and thankfully, honestly, it was more of a learning season for me. I didn't get a chance to direct actors, but I was in sessions like this, just with all the VO stuff,
Mhm.
watching how my producers and how the show creators directed the actors.
Okay.
So
Okay. Interesting. Um, Kevin, can we go back a bit? I'm interested
yeah,
in the storyboarding process, specifically. So
sure.
prior to moving up to being a director on Hitmonkey, when you were doing
Mhm.
storyboards on Hitmonkey and Archer, can you tell me about the process when you talked about working with the writers? So can you start from the moment you get the script,
Mhm.
and
Sure.
what is the process like? How is that divvied up between all the different artists? And let us know how many artists are working on each episode as well.
Sure. Okay. So it's actually fairly simple, but well, Archer's actually the easiest one because for the first 9, 10 seasons, something like that, it was one writer.
Mm,
95% of the episodes were written by one guy, which is the guy who created the
mhm,
show, Adam Reed.
mhm,
Um
He was internal to Floyd Kelly,
he
or was
co
he an
yeah,
external writer?
he created the show and he owned the company with Matt Thompson.
Oh,
And
okay.
also
Okay.
they had previously done Frisky Dingo, and
mhm.
before that they had done a C Lab 2021. So they've been buddies for forever. I think I don't remember when or how they met. But so as far as working with the writer, it was like it was like, this is the script, this is what, make it cool, like
Mhm.
that kind of thing. So we get a script, and at that time the team was the 2 art directors, Neil and Chad, me, who was fresh, a guy named Justin who actually has for the last couple seasons has been the art director. And then a guy named Benji and a guy named Deke Whiteman. And Deke Whiteman is look him up sometime. He's amazing. He actually did like backgrounds on the original Batman animated show and stuff like that. And then a guy named Benji Williams. So minus the directors, there was like 4 of us, I think. You know, one guy would handle teaser act 1. It was a 4-act show. Teaser act 1.
Okay.
And then one of us would handle act 2. And another person would handle act 3, and then the other person would get scenes and cleanup. So, and then it went to, once we started doing more action in the show, basically a person per act. So teaser person, act 1 person, act 2 person, act 3, and then teaser person, they're usually done first. So then they jump to whatever hasn't been touched or to help the other people, you know, that sort of thing. So I quickly, because of my love of it, I became the action guy, the fight scene guy, the car chase guy. So I got a lot of fight scenes and a lot of car chases. You watch a lot of that stuff from season, like especially season 5 through 9. A lot of those fight scenes and car chases are me, you know, and you know, stuff like that. You know, Justin was phenomenal at doing those big group scenes, like get anywhere from 6 to 15 people in a room, which happened a lot. And he was, and that's stuff that like took me, you know,
that is hard.
It's so fucking hard. And he you know, he became a real master at it. Like he had a real shorthand for it. He could see the scene, you know, he could see it happen. So you kind of like, and you kind of play to your strengths, you know, and play to each other. And we would kind of do that, and also try to shake it up. And hey, this person, you've done 2 action scenes in a row, take this, you know, big talking head scene that's 12 pages long, you know, that sort of thing. So the 2 art directors who are also dealing with art directing the show and then occasionally helping us out on boards, they did a little bit more heavy lifting with me on season 1, because I came from comics and I had a lot of bad habits. So the thing that I tell people, you know, a lot of comic artists, and here's where I'm going to piss off some more people, a lot of comic artists, I don't mind being blunt about this stuff because it annoys the shit out of me, so I don't mind being blunt.
Sure. Good. It's better for the show.
No, I really don't. But like, comics to boarding it's much easier to go from boarding to comics than it is going from comics to boarding. Comic books teach you a lot of bad habits. It ingrains a lot of bad storytelling choices that doesn't work in a single frame medium. You know what I mean? So comics, you know, you can fucking break the 180 all you want in comics, and while I disagree with it and I think it's gross and lazy, do it. Make your comic the way you want to do it. Make your comic 20 splash pages, which is actually closer to being TV than not. You know what I mean? But you know, there's so many bad habits that if you only learn from comics, or if you only make comics, there are some people like the Chris Somneys of the world could go board a television by himself and be fine because he's just that good, you know, and he always has been. But a lot of people are not that good, unfortunately. And I'm not that good. I had to learn. I was not that good. Like I still fuck up all the time. You know, it's like I'll turn in stuff, and you know, producer come back to me like, "Hey, you broke the 180." Shit. Okay, give me a second. You know, because sometimes you absentmindedly break the 180 because it's such an easy solution that you don't realize that to actually think through the scene to do it correctly is much harder. And your brain wants the simple thing, you know. And so when you realize that's what you did, you're like, and your ego kind of goes to shit and all that stuff. But anyways, so it's 4 of us. We would get a script, and it was divided up because me, Justin, and Benji had been there a little bit longer than me and Justin. So me and Justin were super new, and so it was a lot of like Neil, Chad, Benji, Deke boarding the show, and then me and Justin getting scenes and then doing cleanup on the rest. And then that's season 4. And then as season 4 progressed, it's like we get more and more of the show. You know, and I really struggled. Like I really struggled, and I with that process, you know, here's the thing that kept me going, the thing that made me not quit, like even as bad as it got for me emotionally and personally and stuff like that during that, was like I loved the show. Like I am not
what you were
I'm not a fan of that much shit. Like I don't, like I'm constantly saying to people, like I don't know how people like anything enough to dress up as it. Like more power to you, please do it. But my brain does not comprehend that. My brain's like, yeah, you know, Wolverine's cool, schnickety, okay, cool, whatever. Like I don't but I loved Frisky Dingo so much, and I loved those first I was a fan of the first 2 seasons of Archer. Like, you know, Frisky Dingo's still one of my favorite TV shows. It's very un-PC now, but it's still like one of my favorite things. You know, and those first couple of seasons of Archer, you know, get pretty in the weeds on some stuff too. But I was such a big fan of that. Coming down and getting a chance to work on it and being a part of it was just so important to me, you know. And plus, I really liked the people, and so that made all the struggles that I was having with what I realized in hindsight, you know, shortly afterwards, was second college, because the Cuban School taught me how to work, but it
Right.
taught me how to work in comics. Whereas the first season,
True.
season 4 of Archer, taught me how to work in storyboards and animation. You know what I mean?
Hey gang, it's Lance here. Thanks so much for tuning into our YouTube channel today. You know, Shane and I are just getting started with these series of interviews. We could really use your support and help getting the word out to everyone. So if you're enjoying what you're watching so far, please consider subscribing to the channel. In addition, it would be great if you could like the video and share it with a friend. Thanks once again for watching, and enjoy the rest of the video. I'm really interested in going back to your transition from comics to storyboards, and you mentioned it was a difficult thing to do. Besides trying to learn the 180-degree rule, did you do any kind of crash course in animation or movies or movie storyboarding or anything like that to learn the process?
None at all, honestly. I think what my crash course was is the same thing that, like, you know, you hear those jokes about, like, or at least I've heard jokes about, you know, there's two types of film school students: the people who watch movies, and then the people who make movies. And the people who make movies become the crew, and the people who watch movies become directors. So, like, I was a little bit of both. I still am both. You know what I mean? I love to help. I love the process. I love making stuff. The few short films I've made, I shoot stuff on my phone or whatever. I love editing. Like, I love that whole process. But also, I just obsessively watch movies, you know, and I will watch the same. This is a terrible bad habit, and I always laugh anytime these memes go around on, like, Twitter or Instagram or whatever. Name a movie you've seen more than 10 times, and I'm like, what movie haven't I seen fucking less than?
Oh boy.
Name a movie I've seen less than 100 times. That's really the more thing, is that's the harder thing. Like, I remember just obsessively rewatching Ghost in the Shell over and over as a kid, you know, like, it just that I wore out a couple of different VHS tapes, but it's like, and it
What are those?
yeah, right. And it shows in my work up through until I got hired on Archer. It shows in my work because just constant upshots and downshots, you know.
Right.
They had to beat that out of me on Archer, because it's like, that's harder to do. Upshot characters are hard to draw, and, you know, and you can't build a rig for that. So that, you know, whatever. I mean, you can, but it's a pain in the ass.
That's right.
Right. You know, stuff like that. And now, like, my thing when I'm talking about storyboarding to people now, I walk them they don't know this because I don't explain it, but I walk them through how I learned how to do this, which is, I started looking at the shows I loved growing up, like Cheers, like, you know, Golden Girls, stuff like that, where it's like, oh, these are set piece, you know, 3 camera shows, you know. So once I really started dissecting that, once I started looking at Archer that way, and I probably was told to do this by people, like, by my directors, I don't remember, but, you know, it's all kind of like it's a soup. Everything just kind of gets thrown in, you know. So you have your wide, and that's your master, and then you have your 2 overs, right?
Sure.
So and within each of those, you have, I did the math at one point, and it was something like 18 to 24 shots. And then once you have, because you have in your master, say you have 3 characters in your master, you have your wide 3 shot, you have your medium 3 shot, and then you have your two 2 shots. You've got 3 singles. So then you take your overs, and then you've got your OTS, you've got your single, you've got your wide, you know what I mean? So it's like you start adding up the numbers of how many shots you have. It's something like 18 or 24. Yeah, it's a high, you know,
possibilities. Yeah.
Right. And it's like, and that's without doing anything crazy with the camera. You just have 3 setups, and you have this, like, with 18 shots, that's a half hour right there. You know what I mean? Like, you can fill time, like, not super hard. And that's without getting creative or interesting, you know? And once I realized, I was like, once you do that, anything, you have your blueprint for how you're going to do the show. Cause after that, it's just editing.
Sure.
You're on a single line, cut, go to a wide line, cut, go to a 2 shot, line, cut. You know what I mean? You kind of get into this, like, this dance, this waltz of
you find a rhythm, and you're looking for opportunities to feed other scenes, you know, beforehand,
because
and then you're go ahead.
No, because you have to think about your transitions. So you have to not only think about
exactly where I was going.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like,
you know, it's interesting the way you're describing it. It's not much different than comics in the fact that you become a co-writer
That's
because you're
exactly
writing
that's
visually.
exactly what I was my again, I probably pissed a lot of people off with this, and now that I need to look for work, I probably won't get any because of it, but um
No, please hire Kevin. He's really
Mhm.
good people.
thank you. I have said for years, much to the chagrin of a lot of, much to the chagrin of some people who I've seen their faces when I say it, but drawing a comic is co-writing it. It's co-author. It's co-writing.
Yeah.
The amount of scripts that I read where I can, and I used to do, I don't do this anymore because I don't work with a lot of writers that write this way anyways, but I used to get scripts when I was freelance, before, where there'd just be this fucking paragraph and I would just take a Sharpie and just go through and
Mm.
cross out everything that didn't need to be in the panel, which I was justified later on when I found out that Alan Moore, when on the scripts for From Hell, Eddie Campbell's
Yeah.
wife would go through and highlight the parts that he actually needed to draw. So,
So you're getting like comic books
yeah,
size
yeah,
script,
yeah.
right?
And I mean, nobody's Alan Moore, and I mean, thank God, both positively and negatively. But
Right.
just to make the joke though, like you're writing, a script is a conversation, a script is a work order, it's a blueprint, that sort of thing. I do think that it's like if you're collaborating with someone, I both in comics but also in boards, I've had the pleasure of being in the hiring chair for it's probably since 2016-ish, 2015, 20, some for quite a long time now. And hiring board artists, hiring various people. My bosses were like, I was like, what are we looking for, aside? And they're like, I'll just hire more of you. And I'm like, well, I don't want to do that.
Good luck.
But the other thing I realized was like, I need to hire different voices because the show itself, like take a show like Archer, the show itself, and I say this lovingly, totally lovingly, because this is what most games and TV shows and movies do. But the show itself will pummel you into what it needs to be.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But
Yeah, by its nature.
yeah, by the nature of production, you will get what you are doing and who you are will get ground into the thing. And that's not in a pulp kind of way. That's in a we're forging a weapon, we're
Mhm.
forging a tool. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? You will get made into
Right.
the thing that needs to fit. I just need to know that you are a piece of material that can fit,
Yeah.
Good.
both
Good.
stylistically and as a human being. Can we work together? Can we get along? If I come to you and say this scene is broken, as a director, I come to you and say this scene is broken, I don't have a solution and I've got to go solve these other fires.
Mhm.
Can I need you to go off and
Mhm.
fix it.
Mhm.
you know I need you to be
Oh,
able
that's
I need you to be
great.
able to
Yeah.
do that, and I need you to be able to try.
Yeah.
If you fail, that's fine,
Yeah.
because that's the other side of it. Is I need if you fail at something, I need you to come to me and say, I try to find people that they come to me and they say, "Hey, this is broken." And instead of just shoving it at me and walking away, they say, "I tried this, this, and this,
Mhm.
and I can't get it. Can you help me?" Oh, okay.
Nice.
Give it to me for an hour or two, or sometimes a day, and I'll get back to you.
Mhm.
Go work on this other thing in the meantime. Like I need people, and the thing that Neil was always good about pushing me onto me, and the others was, I want people who present solutions, not problems.
Mhm. Sure.
So that was
Sure.
and that's been a huge thing just in life in general, like just so many people are
Absolutely.
very easy complainers,
Mhm.
and there's not a lot of interest
Yeah.
in doing the mental math in order
Right.
to try and also the thing that I found that I think is unfortunate in so many paths is people are just afraid to be wrong.
Mhm.
I don't need them to have any of the same beliefs as me or whatever, other than I am passionate about telling
Mhm.
stories and solving
Sure.
problems,
Sure. And then
Yeah.
Yeah.
when you made that transition from storyboard artist to director,
Mhm.
when you talked about like how if you would take off a certain period of time, how it's harder to come back. Now, did you actually
Yeah.
stop drawing when you became a director? Were you more managing? And
Yeah, so
if
that's
that's the case,
yeah.
did you miss the actual act of drawing?
It's not a lot of like I'm drawing from blank pieces of paper. It's a lot of like redlining. It's a
Mhm.
lot of draw overs. It's a
Mhm.
lot of fixing
Mhm.
perspective or
Mhm.
anatomy and stuff like that. It's a lot of like, oh, not this shot. Like the drawings from scratch would be, oh, you did this shot, but I want it to be this shot.
Sure.
Maybe it's like a through like some window, but oh, we need to see this other
Mhm.
character, so we need to move the camera, that sort of thing. So it's a lot of like I said, just like especially season 1 as art director, it was a lot of just redrawing hands or indicating, oh, fix this eye or fix this turn,
Okay.
redrawing proportions for legs,
Mhm.
get working with layout artists and going through and like, hey, your anatomy is really bad on this one or off on this one, redrawing like the underdrawing so they can then go on and fix it. And because that company itself hires so many people fresh out of college,
Mhm.
it's still just furthering. It's a lot of it's furthering their
Yeah, you're
education. So you're
still
taking
teaching. Yeah. Mhm.
still a lot of teaching, a
Mhm.
lot of teaching. Yeah,
No,
and I
interesting.
know, and I don't mind that at all. Like that's not a knock.
Sure.
Like it's
Right,
yeah.
right. But it is and it ends up being a bit of a hit that the company has to take because you have to dedicate an X amount of hours to make sure they can get up to speed
So yeah,
while saving money by hiring a college grad,
yeah,
so
yeah. And I think
uh, there's that
it's
trade-off.
a double edged sword, but I think the investment in people matters,
Mhm.
and I
Mhm.
think
Yes.
that kind of is what makes things easier. Say you spend the first couple months kind of doing that, and a couple months
And
in, like if it's not going to work out,
Yeah. Yeah.
you got
You
an
know by
idea.
yeah,
then. Yeah.
Um,
yeah.
yeah.
What tools were you working with, and how did that transition go? You're trying to do a show and then trying to learn this tool that can do so much more than
Mhm,
just Photoshop
mhm.
or even After Effects, because I know After Effects is a major tool in terms of puppeting the
Yeah.
animation. So what was that like, and what are the tools,
So
that you used?
yeah, not knowing any better, I was heavy into Sketchbook Pro back when it was. I still use
I
it.
still use it today. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Sketchbook Pro had that if you make a folder.
Mhm.
And this is
Mhm.
season 3, season 4 stuff. But if you make a folder and you make a new image, and then it'll just create a new
Mhm.
page. So you could
Right.
sit there and you could just kind of just keep going. So I would do my thumbnails that way, and then go back, start working over them, copy layers over into the next file, redraw
Mm.
arms, stuff like that.
Okay.
And then getting into the studio for the
Yeah.
first season and a half that I was there, season 1 through 5 ish, we used Photoshop and we used layer comps.
Hmm.
So it was all
Wow.
done.
Interesting.
So you end up with hundreds upon hundreds of layers.
Wow.
Jeez.
Sometimes,
So much
and some people were better at organizing their folders than some were not. And that
wow.
sometimes that was part of the job, is I would get handed a file and be told, A, you have to do cleanup, but also organize the
Oh
folder.
gosh.
So
Oh god, no.
yeah. So you lose a couple hours
Clean
just naming arm
Mhm.
layers.
right.
Because with layer comps, it's like copy, you can keep everything where it's at, just draw a new layer, draw a
Mhm.
new arm, or you can have someone walk across the frame without having to redraw it.
Mhm.
So we
Yeah.
did layer comps, and then midway through, pretty early in season 5, I forget what year this was. This would have been 2013, 2013-ish. The studio started the process of becoming a Harmony studio. So we got Storyboard Pro. But with Storyboard Pro, I kind of became the de facto, because everybody knew this about, because my team knew this about me. Directors were like, hey, you start on this. So I started on an episode, like a couple episodes before everybody, and then helped everybody else get into using it. um, I will say it is not as good at drawing and stuff as Photoshop. It's not as good at effects and stuff like that as After Effects. What it is good at is it's good at organization and editing and animatic.
Mhm.
Like, but even then,
Okay.
we don't even use it for animatic editing because our editors edit using JPEGs and movies. So
Really? Huh.
yeah. So Storyboard Pro, what I always wanted, and what we never got, what the company still hadn't gotten to, but I really hope they can over the next couple of years, was an integrated pipeline to where Storyboard Pro goes into Harmony, which is what it's built for.
Hmm.
Can you describe what Harmony is?
Oh,
For
sorry, yeah.
some people who don't
Harmony
know what it is?
Toon
Yeah.
Boom is the parent company, and they make Storyboard Pro, and they make an animation software called Harmony, and it is it's vector based, and it has brushes and stuff like that, but it's the current main animation software that most shows are made out of these days, like Simpsons, Family Guy,
Okay.
a lot of anime, and stuff like that. There's a lot of there's a lot of hand drawn paper stuff that's still made, but there's a lot of stuff these
Mhm.
days that's made in Harmony. If any of your audience is familiar with Flash, it's
Mhm.
basically a souped up version of Flash.
Mhm.
Right, right.
Where
Okay.
you can build a character that is a rig and then puppet the rig,
Sure.
or you can do traditional frame by frame, ones, twos,
Mhm.
fours, whatever you want to use it. Free hand drawn stuff. Hitmonkey is a mix of both. Like, there is a good mix of,
Yeah.
where you have rigs that have deformers and various mouths and stuff like that. So,
Just curious, have you seen the new
Nice.
Procreate Dreams that just I think it's coming
I
out?
did, yeah.
Okay.
If it works half as well as that
Mhm.
demo says it
Mhm.
does, and if that demo is just Procreate and doesn't have any plus, you know, DaVinci or Premiere or After
Right.
Effects,
Sure.
whatever. If it's just then yeah, hell yeah, I'm all in.
Mhm.
And I wouldn't even use it for animation as much as I'd use it for comics and boarding,
Mm.
because you could totally, you can board pretty well in Procreate right now, and Procreate does some limited animation stuff that's pretty
It
cool.
does, yeah.
And I think that the dreams. The other thing that I'm stoked for is the brush, and I want their brush engine to be better,
Hmm.
because I'm not a big
It
fan.
is.
Honestly, that is my biggest
Wow.
gripe, is their brush engine. How the brush engine works is my biggest gripe.
How it works or
Um,
the results you
Yeah.
get, or that two different things?
both,
Okay. Oh,
both.
oh, I've always been excited by their brushes, more so than what I can
most
create in any other.
most people are.
Yeah.
Most people are. So Lance, I am, again, as with everything that we're discovering here, I am the dissenting voice here.
You mentioned that you did live action storyboards as well as animation
Mhm,
storyboards. I'm curious to know
mhm.
which came first. Did you do animation first or live action? And then
Yep.
if you can, let me know the difference between the two, because usually a lot of the guys will stay in one track. If you're an animation storyboard artist, you usually stay there and you don't switch over, crossover so much.
Right.
So I'm curious to know how that
S
happened.
Yeah, animation came first. And part of my kind of like jokey when I tell this story in like panels or whatever is like I never intended to get into TV. Like Cuber School had an animation program, and first year it was like required, so I did a little cheesy thing that like isn't any good because I didn't care about it and had no intention. And also, I never intended to work in TV. I think comics is the perfect medium. I think it's the perfect delivery system. I think it's the perfect medium for delivering any kind of story and whatever. But I loved Archer, loved Frisky Dingo, and then miraculously stayed there for the last, fortunately, the last 11 years. And I ended up falling in love with the process and the medium and stuff like that. Live action was similarly kind of falling into it. Is that I was at a bar with a bunch of friends one night, and I smoked at the time. This is many years ago. I smoked at the time. Girl came up to bum a cigarette, and we started talking, and she's like, "What do you do?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm a storyboard artist." And she worked on Vampire Diaries, and she was there with her producer, and her producer came over to bum a cigarette as well.
Oh,
She's like, "I need a storyboard artist. Everybody in town is either not great or flakes on me,
oh
like
wow.
whatever." And this is
Wow.
during season 5 of Vampire Diaries, and she tried to get me on that, but they're a union show. Georgia's a right to work state.
Mhm.
So what?
Oh, interesting.
So I could have. I never joined the union, which really only is something that I'm like maybe should have done like in this situation because I'm unemployed. But I never
Yeah.
joined the union or anything. So what happened though was she talked to Warner Brothers or whoever it was, CW, whatever. Basically, they were like, "You can hire him if you've used everybody else."
Mhm,
You know what I mean?
mhm.
And she's like, "I have." So they hired me, and so because a lot of their other options were exhausted and all that, so I came on, and it basically was largely their go-to guy for season 6, 7, and 8. And so I was boarding. So this is also while working on Archer.
That
So
was my
and
next
basically I
question.
worked
Now,
at
how did you have time to
yeah.
do this?
Wow.
I didn't. I did. I basically I didn't have a I didn't have a personal life for a couple of years. Well, I did, but it was just relegated to like like Friday, Saturdays, or like 3 a.m. or whatever. But like I basically would work the quote unquote 9 to 6. Work my 8 to 9 hours on Archer, then get to work on Vampire Diaries stuff. So I probably worked anywhere from 20 to 40 hours a
Oh
week extra
god.
on that show, for those 3 seasons. And then that rolled into Black Lightning. So I did the first season and a couple episodes
Oh
of season
my.
2. Black Lightning was
Wow.
Vampire Diaries, as far as working on live action versus animation, Vampire Diaries was much easier, because it was less action oriented. There was a lot more specificity in what they wanted, and by that I mean a lot of what they needed and a lot of what I have come to learn. There's two things that live action boarders do. You're either justifying the budget or asking for more budget, or you're trying to explain to a crew of 100 to 200 people what's in the director's head.
Mhm,
It's not always both.
mhm.
Black Lightning was a lot more intense from a work level standpoint, in that it was a lot of action scenes. It was a lot of and I loved this, and they were great directors. I ended up working with some people that I was a fan of, because I Salim, the guy who created the show, he hired a bunch of dudes who came up in like 90s rap and hip hop music videos. Some of the directors would come in and they knew exactly what they wanted, and sometimes they had already done shots stuff on their phones, and they would just send me that, and I'm like, what do you even, in my head I'm like, I'm gonna take the money, but what do you need me for? you know I think at the same time they kind of liked having like a comic book version of some of the stuff,
Mhm.
because it's like 3 panels per page,
Mhm.
stuff like that. I think there was a little bit of that.
Right, right.
But the biggest time I saw how it was used was I boarded out a big car stunt in Vampire Diaries, and they actually invited me out on set to see it. And I went on set, and there, just big on a friggin' huge wall, was a couple my 100
Mhm.
boards, like just posted up for everybody to
Wow.
see. And that way everybody in the crew was like, this is what we're doing, and they
Exactly.
would cross off each shot
Yep.
as they got
Yep.
it, that sort of thing. It's like, oh, okay, I see it now.
Yep.
But yeah, Black Lightning was a little more intense, like in that some directors knew exactly what he wanted. It was really easy. Sit down, he had a shot list. We would just go through, and I would do my thumbnails and be like, okay, over, two shot,
Mhm.
what, okay. And then there's some stuff where he'd be like, do whatever you do.
Mhm.
Like if there was any sort of like complicated choreography, they would bring in the fight person, and I would take pictures, or I would sketch while they would kind of walk through blocking, because there would always be like the DP, possibly the lighting guy. There's always like 4 or 5 other people there as well.
Right.
Black Lightning was a lot of like meeting with going to various going to stages, like watching them, because they use the same stages as Vampire Diaries. Once Vampire Diaries wrapped, they just took it over and rebuilt everything. They would have me choreograph some fight scene stuff, and they would have me do it at the same time as the fight team was doing it.
Hmm.
Because sometimes there would be stuff that they would do that I wouldn't have thought of, but there'd be stuff that shots that I would come up with that the directors would like, that they would be like, hey, we want to do this, choreograph it for this angle,
Mhm.
stuff. So it kind of a mixture of how that stuff worked. Archer was a good training ground for fight stuff too, because you had to be economical while still making something engaging. It's making something that looked like a fight. And at the time that I was doing a lot of the fight scene stuff on Archer, we had a little bit more room in the animation team, so there was a little bit more flash and then harmony, so we could do a couple more stuff, whereas largely they try to keep it a little bit more limited, so it's a lot more kind of a kick or a punch, stuff like that, which gets the point across and works largely. So but yeah, and as far as the difference between live action and animation, and you're not wrong, Lance, I feel like most people do stay in their
Mhm.
lane. I do yeah, and if I make anybody mad, I'm sorry, but like I do feel like it's easier to go from animation boarding to live action than it is to go from live action to
Mhm.
animation, because animation, you have to choreograph every single move that happens in every second of the show,
Mhm.
essentially. Whereas live action, you can do, and I discourage the shit out of this in my animation boarders. I always beat it out of them, like when in the first couple of weeks. But if they draw any boards with arrows in it, I'm like, nope, don't draw an arrow. You need to show me that action.
Mhm.
If you have a character that needs to
Mhm.
move, show them moving. I don't care if it's a stick figure. It's Storyboard Pro. You can literally grab the drawing and move it. So have them move. Whereas in live action, there's a lot of arrows and a lot of like,
Yeah.
camera
Yeah,
direction
us
stuff.
live action storyboard artists are pretty lazy in that sense.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
rely a lot on the arrows and different tricks to show
Which
things, and so we don't have to draw another panel.
Exactly, yeah, and I think that's another thing that the Vampire Diaries people liked about me, is that because I come from that thing, I would do the extra
Mhm.
panel, I would show the
Mhm.
movement, I would have the, even if there's an arrow there, there's still 2 panels of someone,
Sure.
there's a panel where they're here, panel where they're
Yep.
moving, you
Yep.
know what I mean? So there was, and because I did a lot of those boards in Storyboard Pro, or I did a lot of did most of Black Lightning and Adobe Fresco, but it's easy just to copy a layer and have them
Sure.
move, like, I
Exactly.
just
Yeah.
so I would just do
Yeah.
that.
Yep.
You lazy bastards.
Mhm.
One of the biggest like training ground things, aside from the 3 camera setup, just like even if you break the 3 camera setup, it doesn't matter. That's your
Mhm.
bones, like that's your basis. But the other basis is the thing that I, and anybody who has worked with me that sees this will roll their eyes when they hear it, but is like, if it doesn't work in circle heads and box bodies, then it's not going to work the prettier you draw it.
Mhm.
It doesn't get any better the nicer it
Mhm.
looks. If it doesn't work in a basic
Mhm.
framing, then I don't care. Take it back.
Yeah,
If
good
That
advice.
is
yeah,
so
Yeah,
true.
good advice. Excellent.
yeah,
And speaking of advice, what would be before we let you go?
sure.
What would be the advice you would give to someone starting out in their career in storyboarding for animation, and somebody who might be midway in their career. There's two types of advice
Yeah.
there, but I think it's interesting because we always give advice to younger people, but I find as I've gotten older, it's like, boy, I could use some guidance as
Yeah,
well.
I think both of it's gonna be a lot of do as I say and not as I do, because I'm bad at all this, but both the overlap, I think, overlap on both would be make sure that you have a relevant submission for the thing you're going after. So if you are a character designer and you want to get into boards and you don't have a PDF of you doing any type of storyboards or whatever,
Right.
then make sure you have that. And then also, as someone who's hired a lot of people, I can see through to what you could be if you show me if you show me a board sample that doesn't fit the style and the tone of what I'm looking
Mhm,
for. I can see through
mhm,
that. But as someone who works with a lot of other producers, they don't
mhm,
always. So
Mm,
I have hired people before that other producers have passed on because I'm like, nope, I see it.
mhm,
And they've largely proven me
mhm,
right. I've been wrong a couple times, but I would say the overwhelming is that they've proven me right. But I am not most hiring people. So I would say make sure you have samples that fit. If you want to be on an action show, have action samples. If you want to be on a cartoony, Loud House, not Loud House, but like, Steven Universe style show, have that. If you can do both, but make sure that you're submitting for the thing dressed for the job that you want. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Keep a separate,
that's perfect.
like Shane, as someone, I know you have a billion styles. I used to. I don't know that I do anymore, but I used to. And it's like I used to submit everything and get hired for none of it because they didn't know what they were going to get. And I'm sure you've dealt with some degrees of this, but you also have styles that you can submit for the thing. You can cater your portfolio to the thing that you want to get. And
Yes.
that applies to everybody
mhm.
across all spectrums. And also I'm bad at this, and also I have to put together a portfolio because I haven't needed one in a decade. So I have, the joy of trying to figure out what that looks like in 2023 as a, middle career guy. um
Speaking of middle career
yeah.
guy, what advice would you give to someone
Yeah.
maybe even in your situation right now?
um don't the thing that I'm discovering, and the thing that I would say that maybe this applies to people, is don't be afraid of who you know.
Mhm,
Don't be afraid of your connections. It's not a bad look to reach out and
To ask for help,
yeah, to ask for
as it
help.
were.
mhm,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Don't load a U-Haul truck by yourself.
It's the
Yeah.
best.
Yeah.
What?
Don't be, I mean, and it's just dumb, kishy bullshit like that is true, is like, don't be afraid to ask for help, but also don't dismiss something just because on its face it seems like it's beneath you.
mhm,
It may not be. It may be a rewarding thing that you just are, it's like every job looks terrible on LinkedIn. Every job looks terrible on Indeed because it's all,
Sure.
they all have to put the same fucking bullshit in there. And
mhm,
it's like job,
Right.
just much like your resume is not you, those job descriptions are not the employer or the job. You know
mhm,
what I mean? So you kind of have to,
So true.
like, that's the thing I look at now is I'm sitting there going like, I I could be wrong, but I am 99.9% certain I will not get my next job through those
hmm,
services. I will get a job via someone I
yeah,
know or someone of someone I know. You know what
yep,
I mean? Like, it's gonna, and
yep,
that I think is important. And that plays into going back to the younger person just starting out, is it's like those people that you're going to college with, keep the ones that you appreciate, and don't keep people just because you can stair climb or ladder climb.
mhm,
That's never going to do you any good. Keep the people who you care about and you're passionate about who they are and what they do, and who are passionate about who you are and what you do, because you will come up in the industry together. And when there's going to be times when they need your help, and you'll be there, and when there's times when you'll need their help, and you just have to ask for
mhm,
it. We're all trying to figure this out together, and that's the thing. Like, kind of tying this into like the strike stuff, and being at this place in my life and my quote unquote career and all that stuff, is like the thing that I keep telling myself is like, and this is, I have to tell myself this stupidly because is that I am not alone in this. There are literally hundreds, if not thousands, of other people going through this exact
mhm,
same thing. And that's both encouraging and humbling, but also, god damn it.
mhm,
Because
Yeah.
we want
Yeah.
we're such tortured bastards to ourselves that we want to be alone. Like, oh God, it's only happening to me. I am Job. Why are you doing this to me?
Right.
And that's not what it is. It's like, all right, man, like the hurricane came and wiped out my whole street. It's not just me that this happened to, like that sort of thing. So I think that's a huge thing too, is like, when you're starting out, it's very easy to believe that like, oh, nobody's hiring me. Well,
Right.
look at the
Right.
hundreds of other kids they also didn't hire, when you're
Yeah, exactly.
in your middle kind of career, kind of like whatever stuff, it's like, look at the other people with the same skill set that are also trying to figure this out, and don't look at it as a negative, but look at it as like, okay, like I'm not alone. There's other people. Maybe I can talk to those other people who are going through this, and we can all kind of like, if not figure shit out together, commiserate together, and I'll feel better so I don't take this out on my friends or my family or myself even.
Yeah.
So
That's really great advice, Kevin. Really appreciate you coming on here today and talking
Yes,
to
thanks,
us.
Kevin.
Where can people find more about your work and your music?
sure. KevinMellon.com for everything. That's Kevin Mellon, Mellon with 2 L's, Mellon. And then I'm at KMellon on Instagram, and then Mellon Music on Instagram. And if you just look me up I am on every single streaming service as far as music goes. And I have a Substack and all that, and all those links. Substack, Patreon.
Oh, yeah.
All those links are on KevinMellon.com. So.
Awesome. That's great. Well, thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you next time. Take care.